I work because I know there's a clock ticking. I don't know when I'll be gone, right? But I grew up around so much death that I don't waste time. Hey folks, this one is gonna be a little different, talking about grief today. And let me tell you why. So over this past year, it's been rough, okay? And I think it's been tough for a lot of people out there with COVID and just other stuff. I lost a double-digit amount of people, and somebody very, very close to me as recently as last week. There are people like that I know that care about me, various levels, but multiple people that worry about me. They don't think that I got a lot of calls telling me I should grieve or how to grieve, and they mean well. Like, this is like people showing that they care. The reason that we're having this talk this way is because I think there are other people that are similar to me, maybe not a lot, but similar to me, that move in a very similar way. And I wanted to talk about it from the perspective of a Black man who grew up in a certain type of environment that saw a lot of things. I am not speaking for Black men that grew up a certain type of way. I'm not speaking for a race, and I'm not speaking for men. I am just deconstructing a little bit about how I move. I'm gonna start out by saying I'm a very private person, and I'm gonna remain that way. And now that might be a head scratcher for a lot of people that watch me and that's listening, because they're like, man, you share a lot about your life. Yes, I do. I share bits of my life that work towards the thing that I'm trying to explain in the moment. However, there are certain privacies of mine that I will guard with my life. It's just certain things that I'll never do on social media or in these videos. Grieving is one of those things. So let's just start off with what grief actually is. How does the dictionary define grief? And it's deep sorrow, especially that caused by someone's death. Now, like I said earlier, I grieve in a very different way. And I have been losing people close to me since I was a kid. And I've always had a weird relationship with death. But even in my late teens, early 20s, I remember saying, you know what, I'm not going to any more funerals. And that was just at a time where so many people that I grew up with, so many people that I cared about were passing away. And it wasn't natural causes that was taking them away. And so when I speak on this environment, in the environment that I came up in, it just was something that you got used to seeing and used to dealing with. And there is a way that some people like to grieve, and it takes a lot for them, right? Like it takes a lot out of them. But a lot of people in that community that I was growing up in various places at various times of my life, if we were to grieve in a more traditional way, we probably wouldn't be able to get out of bed. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is certain things were happening at such a clip, at such a rate, that there's a part of you that kind of goes numb to it. Now, not numb in a sense of I don't care about these people, I don't love these people, or whatever the case is. That's not the case, and that'll never be the case. Just in a way where I have to find a way to convert that energy into something positive. I have to find a way to make it so in my life, or the things that I touch, that person or those people did not leave in vain. Let me give you an example of what I mean. And this one is pretty personal. So some of you know, some of you don't, but early on, I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother, Ozetta Hooper. I think she is the greatest person to have ever lived and walked this planet. I mean, a lot of people feel that way about their grandmothers, right? I love this woman. She was like my, I think if she was alive, I think that I would be a very, very different person. I don't know if I would be half as driven if she was alive. And the reason being is because when she was alive, she filled me up so well. I was just the greatest thing in her eyes. That encouragement was just always there. Like, if I told this woman that I wanted to learn how to go up to the top of a roof and fly, she would have, like, in a safe way, but encouraged me. She would have been like, that boy gonna be a pilot. So I was very young when she died. But here is the thing. What I have shared is, that both my parents have struggled with substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, whatever. That woman had to die for us to move from Kentucky under her tutelage, right, out of her house, out of her close proximity, to California, where my parents were forced to be a little bit more on their own, where they both would eventually get clean. I could be selfish and wish and hope that she was still here. However, I don't know if my parents get clean at the clip in which they got clean at if she's around. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that death was not in vain. She did her job. She did the things she needed to do. And now it was time for my parents to be actual parents. Okay. That's one example. So for me, when I see death, I try to make sense of it the best way that I can. And things don't always make sense, but you would be surprised. I have an uncanny way of like making sense of a lot of things that happen in my life and giving it some meaning. So not that long ago, I had two friends pass away within a week of each other. They didn't know each other. It was something about a blood clot. Both of them had like, I think it was something around a blood clot. And with these two people, these two women were just amazing folks. I wish they had known each other because I think they would have gotten along very well. These were people that just rode for me, that just really believed in me. They knew who I was, like, through and through. I meet a lot of people in most of the states or cities that I go to, and, you know, what's imprinted on them is like this Dr. Cole like persona, which is me. But that's not me all the time. Nor do I ever want it to be. I want to be a reflection of the places that I grew up in. But with these two individuals, they had always saw that. They always knew that about me, and they just always knew I would figure it out. They just had such confidence in my ability, more confidence in me than I probably had in myself. And I'm a very confident guy. I don't really do a lot of self-doubt. They had a similar effect that my grandmother had, in the sense of an inner part of your tribe that believes in you just in a crazy way. Then, you know, lose some more people, some to COVID, some not to COVID. You know, there's a cousin that I met in the Chicagoland area. So I did not meet a lot of my family, and the vast majority of, especially my father's side of my family, lives in the Chicagoland area. So I meet this brother. He's an older cousin. He's around my dad's age. They used to run together when they was younger. And I bought, you know, I'm at this house, and I'm not a handyman. This dude is a handyman. Off the strength of me being his cousin, me being my father's son, or whatever the case is, you know, he would come over and we started like building stuff. We would go through this house, and, you know, we put together this studio that I'm in right now. We started building out the larger studio, which is downstairs, which we'll start doing more stuff from. He was just a cool dude. And we would talk, and, you know, he would always try to like reconcile things between my pops and I. Now, you know, again, I'm cool with my parents. I appreciate my parents. I'm very proud of my parents and where they are on their journey. But again, I just see the world in a very different way. I've always been a very independent child. I was an independent person for most of my life. So in the middle of this, in the middle of building out this stuff, he got sick. He fell. He hurt his leg. All right, well, it happens, right? People hurt themselves or whatnot. And then there was something that came back about a stroke. And I would call him. As soon as I heard my aunt was here, my aunt is like my homie. Like, again, she would be family even if we're not blood related. She's just the dopest person. I call her my baby aunt because she's my dad's youngest sister. We're closer in age. And so, but I call him as soon as I hear about it. He's in the hospital. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I'll be okay. Like, really kind of putting me at ease. And he and I were starting to build this relationship again. I think part of our talks were, I'm around the same age as his son, and they got whatever issues they got. I was a point of catharsis for him in that we had these discussions about these Black father-son relationships, especially if you had, if it's like like I was born in the 80s, right? And so especially around this time, right? Like this group of young Black men that crack really impacted my family, you know. So when I checked on him, his first inclination was to take care of me. Everything is good. I'll be fine. I would check in on him every now and then. Well, he wasn't good, and it wasn't fine, and he would eventually pass away, which which is very difficult. Like his tools are still at my house. Like I didn't even move them. I didn't touch them for a while until I had to just go ahead and get in a contractor to finish up the rest of the work. I didn't want to keep doing it without him. It was something that we started together. So that happened. And then, I met his son. And his son is super, super cool. And I saw a lot of myself in his son. And his son handled, it was a beautiful service. And, my cousin was a Chicago firefighter, and a lot of people from the CFD rolled up to the funeral. It was beautiful. And this is all in the midst of COVID, which added a different layer to how people grieve. The last one I'll talk about is the one that just happened most recently. A really good friend of mine in this education work. His role in my life was that of a big brother, mentor, friend. It kind of went in that space, and we were we worked well as a team. I'm very high energy when I'm doing education advocacy stuff, and and coach, I would call him coach every now and then, but he was a calm dude. He'd been here before, he'd seen it. Homie done helped and started schools in New York and has done stuff in California, and his record just goes back. But he always had like a kind word for me and just mentored, like, even as I was starting my own company and organization. He was an advisory board member and just a really good dude, just a really, really good dude. So when he passed in a very violent way, it was a home invasion and killed him on a scene and shot his wife, who was recovering. This one was more public-private is what I'll call it, right? Because, this person is a really public figure, and our relationship, like our friendship, our mentorship was very public. So this is the one where I got like a lot of calls. Like all the other situations, I would get calls, but they were more manageable because one of them was very Oakland or Bay Area centric. One was very Chicago centric. But this one was like an industry that, we worked in, this public education world where even it was friends and foes, right? Kind of checking in because, this was kind of bigger than the moment that, some of us have been like fighting and debating over. Here's a personal piece. I'm an introverted person. Like professionally, like I can rock a crowd. Like you give me a microphone, you can give me thousands of people. I'm very comfortable. It actually doesn't bother me. I know that one of the biggest fears in the world is public speaking. I feel right at home. But in my personal time, I like to be alone. I'm very like, I want to have some scotch. I want to have a cigar. I want to like process things in that kind of way. There was a lot of calls coming to the point where I just turned my phone off. I just stopped taking, I turned off notifications and all that stuff. But there were people in my life that somewhat got offended by that. And I don't blame them. I'm not mad at them. I think, they were just trying to help. But there's always this, Charles got this wall up, or he's a machine, or all he cares about is work. My humanity gets stripped a lot because of the pace at which I work. For me, I thought that people kind of understood this about me. I thought that people understood that I take on so many projects, or the things that I work on may seem unfocused, even though they're not. I work because I know there's a clock ticking. I don't know when I'll be gone, right? But I grew up around so much death that I don't waste time. And I do a lot of things alone. And this is one of those things that I kind of need to do alone. But it didn't dawn on me that there were people that were close to me or felt that they were very close to me. They would see that as a snub. They would see that as like, me not rocking with them, which couldn't be further from the truth. But it's just how I process. And this is the thing. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, the people in my very, very close inner circle, now we're talking about people like my brother Will or my homie Jeff. Like all of us grew up losing people. Will did 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. So when it comes to this type of stuff, he automatically understands, 1, because he's known me since I was 11 years old, and 2, because we dealt with a lot of death together, and 3, because he lost way more people than I did, like fighting in a war. I don't have to deal with that from him or people that's in my really tight inner circle because they familiar with me. There are people that have come into my life at this newer stage that know that I write reports and do education work, or maybe do work, in healthcare and you know what I mean? And they just want to be there for you. And it's hard to explain to somebody in that moment, to articulate when you are battling whatever emotions and trying to figure out what is happening around you. It's 11 people that I've lost it. So trying to just figure out like, yo, what the hell is going on is hard for me to articulate at those moments. And I assume that there are young people out there, or there are other folks my age or whatever, right? I think especially black boys. Again, I'm not speaking for all black boys. I'm not speaking for all black people, and I'm not speaking for all males. But for the black males that grew up very similar to me, that grew up in the type of communities that I grew up in, that are used to getting reports about somebody dying or whatever the case is, I really think that the vast majority of the popular world don't know how to deal with those type of people. I just mourn different, if that's what we gonna say. I just wanted to kind of get that out there because I am somebody that I have access to therapy. I have a really close-knit network that I can talk to when I need certain things to happen. But there's a lot of people that don't. And there's a lot of people that have seen so much death that they become very similar to me. I'm very numb to death. And not numb in the sense of I don't care, but just like, all right, so I got to keep doing this thing that I'm doing. So I made sense out of all of those deaths the way that I did with my grandmother. The way that I did for my last friend, and the way that I'm still kind of processing it, is just like, look, this is why we do this work in education, because if these boys, especially the boys that look like me, and I know people get mad when I say this, but it's just the truth. It is why I do this work. I do this work very selfishly. I do this work because I did not have a me when I was growing up. I did not have somebody that was just fighting for me to get the best education and all that stuff, or had some muscle behind them. That's who I fight for. I'm very selfish about it. It is understanding that the work that we do in education is not just about test scores. It's not just about making these reports look good. What it's about is understanding the consequences when we continue to fail our community in education. People make life choices and decisions based off the opportunities that's going to be in front of them. And it's really hard to have some good opportunities in front of you if your education system sucked, if you were dismissed, if you probably started out in juvenile hall early or getting suspended and stuff early, which we know exacerbates your chances of seeing a prison cell at some point in your life. Selfishly, I make sense of one of my closest friends ever passing in such a violent manner. I use that as a reminder of why we go so hard and work the way that we do in this education space. Here are the questions from my team. I'm going to have my phone and we're going to have my scotch. So let's go into the first question. Do you cry? Every now and then, quick story. I don't normally cry about deaths. I don't, I want to. It's not always a very easy thing, but when my last homie passed away, we were on stage with the 8 Black Hands. You all follow the 8 Black Hands, and if you don't, you should. It's every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern. But we were doing this show, one of our biggest shows ever, at the Madam C.J. Walker Theater in Indy. It was a great crowd. I mean, it was awesome, and I had been fine. I was disturbed by what happened. I'd had to do some interviews back home, but I had held it together pretty well for the most part. I had one moment where I almost broke that day, when I just felt like I was talking to some potential leaders in this city that I don't think was leaning into their leadership, and it was Black people like me, and it hurt me. But we're on stage, and I am transitioning us from the main show part to the Q&A section, and the bridge of it is going to be a tribute to our friend Dirk, because the brothers in the 8 Black Hands also knew him. And as I'm doing it, and as I'm saying that piece about his life and what he probably would have wanted us to do, I broke. And I fought it. You know, I got through it. I handled it. But I am still angry about that break. And let me tell you why. I give a lot to this movement. I give a lot to my work and a lot to the constituency or the base that consumes me. And it should be that kind of relationship, because it's very personal. But there are some things that I always just want for myself. Like, for instance, if I'm dating somebody and in love with somebody, that's not for public consumption. That's for me. If a tragedy happens in my family that that I cannot utilize to help serve in this movement in a way that can benefit other people, then that stays with me. That's mine. And finally, another part of mine is grief. Like that is mine. And that I did not want to share that with people. Now, again, however you do that is fine. Again, I am not saying what I do is right, wrong, or whatever. What I'm doing is exposing you in a very raw way to how somebody else kind of works. So I'm still angry that I broke in that moment. It really does bother me. But that was the last time I cried. Before then, it'd probably been over a year. And I don't know what I was crying for the time before that. It's probably another day. Do you talk to someone such as a mental health care provider, all that? So I'm actually very comfortable with the concept of therapy. I started my career as a social worker. You know, you have to do that in that field. When I do my therapy sessions, I do try to be very, very open and honest. Sometimes I don't be knowing what to say to the cat, but I'm not somebody that's closed off to that idea. I have an amazing therapist, but I can only utilize that therapist when I'm in Oakland. The way that the licenses is set up, he's licensed for California, and I'm often not. Sometimes I'm in California, but a lot of times I'm not. So we don't want him to get in any trouble or anything like that. So on this one, I had to roll it solo. It's tough once you actually get a therapist that you like. And I really like my therapist. He's a dope dude, dope black dude, came from the world of addiction. And I like that world. I'm familiar with it because when my parents were getting clean, I would go to NA meetings with them. But it took time to build that relationship. And I am not looking forward to building another relationship that deep and that intimate. So yes, I normally have somebody to talk to in the mental health space. Next question. How do you respond off the bat? Describe any bodily reactions if you have any. I'll just reflect on this last one that happened with my friend in education. How did I respond? I think that first it was disbelief because the facts were a bit flaky and they were still kind of coming in. There was a lot of gaps and a lot of holes. So I just tried to just wait. But once it became apparent that this thing had really happened, I think I was shaking a little bit. And then I went into my next meeting. Now, here's what I'll be honest about. I've been off. Like, I'm already, just so you know, I'm already an impatient person. I already don't have, I do not have the best patience in the world now because I told you I'm working a lot. You will see multiple books crank out this year, multiple reports crank out this year. Like I am writing as somebody who has an expiration date. I know that I am not promised tomorrow. So I do not want to leave this earth with that stuff inside of me. I have to get it out, especially Crack Baby Residue. Crack Baby Residue is the follow-up book to my first book. And I'm hoping to have that manuscript done by the end of the year. And so when this happened with my friend, I instantly thought about his wife and hoped that she was okay. I thought about his son, how his son is going to get this news. And then I thought about him and I thought about what I would have wanted him to do if this were the other way around. Find a way to let that motivate you to do better work. So my instant response when you said what I do, what happened in my body, I don't do well at paying attention to my body in the sense of, was I like dehydrated? Did I feel, I don't know. Right. But what I do know is I instantly went and thought about ways that I could convert this energy into something positive. Somebody is going to have scholarship money because that man passed away. Somebody is going to have a better educational opportunity because that man passed away. Like I am going to make sure of it. So that will not be in vain. The next question. How long does your sadness last before it starts to feel normal? I watch a lot of movies. This is not the best way to answer it, but if you know me, you got to love all of me, fam. I love Marvel movies. And in the first Avengers, they kept trying to ask Bruce, who is the Incredible Hulk, like, how is he contain the Hulk? How does he do it? And at the end, because it's a movie, then he kept getting interrupted every time somebody asked him in the body of the movie. But towards the end, before his big moment, he said, the secret is I'm always angry. I'm always angry. I'm always sad. Like these things don't go away. These are body blows that don't and those scars don't leave. The sadness doesn't go away. There isn't like a state of normal, right? And if you work with me, I think you recognize these things. I'm a very high strung person. Cats that's closest to me, like they'll tell you, like Charles cannot sit still. Like he can't do it. Like he can't not do something. I don't think the sadness ever goes away. Not for me. It's there, but it doesn't. It motivates me in a positive way. Do you take breaks? Yeah, all the time. I think, when people define breaks, it is hard for me to turn it all the way off. And part of that's because my dream was to, own a company, own an organization. And I didn't think that would ever happen. And I've worked really hard and busted my hump for other people's stuff. So I'm for damn sure going to work that much harder on my own. I might work some late hours and some early mornings, but I also try to book things in places that I want to be at, right? So, if I can put it like this, it ain't going to be too hard to get me every now and then if you a client that's in Miami. Like Miami. My career, my vocation isn't a job. It's a part of my lifestyle. And so I wrap in other things of my lifestyle so I can kind of enjoy those things together. Now, what I don't do is I do think that we are now in a time in our culture where people are abusing the concept and the notion of self-care. There is a real need for this term. There's a real need for people to take better care of themselves, especially with where the science is now. And like anything that's good, people will take advantage of it. And we just at a time where we've kind of overcorrected. My grandmother has never heard the term self-care. My parents, that's not a thing for them, right? Again, I grew up in a place where a lot of people died. Homeless, lived in a bunch of shelters. People were really, really struggling and thriving to get all that they could get, So I feel like it would be disrespectful to that place if I started going easy. And this is not killing me or taxing me in that type of way. But I will end it by saying this. There's a lot that I give to the public. There's a lot that I give to people. There's a lot that I give to my community. There's a lot that I give to you all watching this video. And then there are some places where I'll always just draw the line. There are some places where it's just mine. And I know people were happy and proud of me for the little breakdown I had. And my A Black Hands brothers was right there to like pick me up. And it was great. And I still hate that happened. Not because I'm worried about crying in front of you people. I don't care. Right? It is what it is. But some shit is just mine. And I'm going to always be that way. So, yeah, man. Hopefully this was helpful. It was a new way to do things. And this will be fun to sift through. Cheers. The better question is, are you okay with failing? Are you okay with losing? If you can answer those things as yes, then I would say run like hell. Start running right now. Stop waiting for folks.